Well, I think the vulnerability management space has gotten really stale.
Yep.
And I think, my story probably isn't very different than other stories you hear, which is you go into the console and it just looks like you're boiling the ocean. It's like, where the hell do I spend my time?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, great. I have 12,000 vulnerabilities, but
Right.
what's really important to me? What's my true north? What's my, what am I driving towards? And getting more context around that to tell you that, look, yeah, you might have 12,000 vulnerabilities, but these are the assets that are really, really at risk. This is what we know is being exploited in the wild. This is what we know is exposed. This is what we know, having that context around that to wrap around that to say, this is where you need to spend your time because you can't keep up. Google comes out with an update every day.
Right.
Microsoft Edge comes out with an update every day. There's just too much. So you have to, and there's just not enough resources. So you have to really spend your time where you get your most value.
Yeah, I agree with that. The curiosity is in, so we're looking for that analysis layer on top of just the
Mhm.
vulnerability layer. And again, I do think that it's these players claiming they can do it. I'm just curious if that's accurate. And I could name so many more. Obviously, Microsoft is a player in there with Defender. There's so
Yeah.
many more endpoint players. Fortinet's in there. There's so many. Cisco,
Well,
Palo. But I'm just curious. These players that are pushing the edge on endpoint detection and response to what they're claiming is an XDR, a full view with remediation, with response. How much of this is marketing hype, and how much is it? Are they actually getting close to pulling this off?
I'm going to give you an honest answer. I don't know. I
Yeah.
haven't looked at Titanium in quite a while.
Right.
And when we did look at Titanium, it was, well, what are you exactly?
Yeah.
What problem are you solving for me? It's really cool. I can do natural language query and pull up assets and pull
Yep.
up information. But what problem are you solving for me? I'm sorry, I'm going to go to the left when you're going right here a little bit. But we've looked at products lately like Silk and Armis.
Okay.
Armis, we're actually in a proof of concept with right now. They've introduced an asset vulnerability management, functionality within their tool. So Armis, Exonius, Brinca, these types of tools are aggregators that are bringing in information from all of your tools, from your EDR, from your whatever agents you have out there that they integrate with. They're bringing in all that information, and then they're trying to layer on top of that some smarts to tell you these are your most vulnerable assets.
Trying to.
That's where we've been spending our time. As I said earlier, I need someone to tell me what my true north is because I can't make sense of it when I'm just looking at a console that shows me 12,000
Yeah, I think that's a great.
vulnerabilities.
So that's sort of that one monitor to rule them all isn't very helpful because you're trying to rule something that's too wide. Those
Yeah.
names, I apologize, I wasn't familiar with them. Did you say? Could you just say those names again?
Silk is one of them.
Silk. Yep.
Armis, Armis, is
Yep.
another.
Okay. Yep.
Axonius competes with Armis.
All right. Trying to find them because we also
Brinca is another one.
we do some of these names that are also not public yet, private ones. I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out, are these an endpoint area or are these in a different cloud area? Where would you put these guys?
Well, that's just it. It was an interesting realization to us when we went to RSA this year. We have effectively built this tool internally. Our automation and integration automation team built this, and then we went to RSA and we're like, holy hell, there's a bunch of these tools that just materialize out of nowhere.
Yeah,
But I don't know really what they call themselves. I
got
call them aggregators because they're just plugging into everything you have and aggregating all that data together.
hmm. No, I think we tracked. Yeah, I knew we tracked one of them. I knew we tracked Armis
There you go.
in that space. We have him in IoT security. I don't know if that's accurate.
Well, the thing is, I don't like. Are you familiar with Landsweeper?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so we use Landsweeper, right? And it does what it says. It sweeps the LAN, right? Armis can kind of do that because you can plug it into all your switches and it can ingest data via a spam port. Or you can plug it into your CrowdStrike, or you can plug it into Okta, or you can plug it into Microsoft, and it aggregates everything together to give you one source of truth. So it's kind of a content management database. It's an aggregator. It can give you vulnerability information.
It's
For us, what we originally were looking at it for were for compliance reasons.
right.
I need to know everything that doesn't have my endpoint agent, my microsegmentation agent, my vulnerability scanner agent. I need to know when one of those is missing so we can remediate it. That's how we originally started down this road.
Yeah, that's
But
fascinating.
that's where I see the vulnerability scanners going, is what they're sort of doing, which is aggregating all this data together and then giving you back a source of truth of these are the most vulnerable assets you have in your environment.
That's fascinating. Already so educational. Thank you so much. It's interesting, right? Because you just talked about all the different agents, right? You could go ahead and deploy 5 different endpoint agents. And now what you're really looking for is, okay, which are the ones that is still missing, right? Now that I've got all of that, I need not just that information, but what else is out there that's still vulnerable? And you're saying that they scan your entire inventory and bring that information back to you?
Yeah, so twofold, one of which is they plug into your existing agents.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're pulling in the data from there and then somewhat enriching it a little bit. But then, in the case of Armis and in the case of Silk does this as well, they layer on top of that intelligence to tell you, based on the criticality you've assigned to these machines and based on the threat score that we see via the VSS score, the CVSS score, these are your most critical and vulnerable devices that you need to spend your time on.
Yeah, really
And I
interesting.
think that's what a lot of people need, not
Yeah.
just here are your 12,000 vulnerabilities. Have a nice day.
Right. And I mean, the last thing a SOC analyst needs is 12,000 alerts, right? They'll just
Yeah.
walk out the door. Curious, it almost sounds to me a little bit like, these up and coming security information management players, the SIM players, taking out the Q radars, logarithms, Splunks. Do they work hand in hand? Do they take this information and then you go throw it into a SIM?
So it's interesting because when I think of the SIM, I think of the SIM as kind of a dumping ground for all logs,
Yeah.
and then you're going to bubble something up to me. You're going to report on it. A tool like Armis it's not taking in login information. It's not taking in, oh, somebody logged in from Russia. We should probably bubble that up, or here's a nice dashboard. It's taking in like all these things exist, and if a certain event happens, like a machine just comes on the network for the first time, you've never seen it, it can kick off an alert. To me, this is like a whole new sector. I haven't seen anything in my mind. I haven't seen anything like it. And that's why I keep calling them aggregators, because they're just aggregating a bunch of data together. And then you set rules and whatnot in there to say, "Well, bubble this up or do this when that happens."
Yeah, this is all new to me, which is why I'm just kind of playing around with the tool here while we look at it and see if there's any other players in this space that kind of do that. But this is very new for me. I haven't really heard anything like this before.
I think Exonius is, from sort of my travelings, probably the most well known. And actually, our managed detection and response service has just come to an agreement to start using Exonius on their back end. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that tool.